What's up, everybody? I'm Johnny Christ, and this is Drinks with Johnny. Thank you so much for checking out the show, and thanks to Sweet Drop CBD oil. Yeah, they sent me some stuff a while ago, and you know, it's a buddy's company. I really like the product though, so I talked to him and asked him if he could do a promo code. He did. So you can head over to sweetdrop.com and use promo code DrinksWithJohnny, and you're gonna receive 20% off. I'm gonna start off the show as I always do. A little Sweet Drop underneath the tongue. And find out what Sweet Drop and CBD oil can do for you by heading over right now to sweetdrop.com. Now, in this week's episode, I'm super excited. I'm super stoked, dude. I'm going to be talking to a living legend and in the wrestling world, so I'm just going to bring him on. I'm just going to shut the fuck up and bring him on right now. Raven, how you doing today, man?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. Everyone good in your camp? Everyone healthy and safe?
Yeah.
That's good. I'm glad. So you're a 39-time hardcore champ. Is that correct?
Yeah.
That's fucking incredible.
It's one of those titles that changed hands quite often. So, you know, it's not as impressive as it sounds.
Yeah. You got a dog in the background there?
Yeah, my dog's around somewhere.
What kind of dog is it?
Pit bull.
Nice. I got two dogs. I got a golden retriever and a Yorkshire Terrier. You might hear them in the background.
That's a size difference. Big size difference.
Yeah. Which one do you think runs the roost?
The Yorkshire Terrier.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
That's just how it goes.
Little dogs are Napoleons.
Yeah. Oh, every time. That's what they call me too. I'm 5'6". I'm the little Napoleon sometimes, you know. So Halloween's around the corner. I want to start off with one of my favorite matches you had in WCW with a good friend of mine, Chris Jericho, at Halloween Havoc 1998. What do you remember from this match, and what is a typical Halloween look like for you, and what is Halloween going to look like this year for you?
Halloween's going to look like nothing this year for me because, you know, it's COVID. It's COVID year. But Halloween was usually almost always my favorite holiday of the year because I love dressing up. Yeah. But as I got older and I stopped drinking, it lost its luster to an extent.
You have to drink to dress up?
No, but I'm saying, but going out to a club, like, and looking at all the weird costumes and stuff, I used to love that. But when you don't drink, it's no fun being in a club.
How long you been sober for?
Long time.
Okay.
Probably at least 15 years, I guess.
Shit.
Yeah, a long time. Well, I'm 55. I'm 56. Just turned 56.
Well, you look great. I didn't know you were that old.
That's why I said it, so you would say how great I look.
You're setting it up. I like it.
Yeah, of course. No, I'm kidding. No, but what I remember about that match was that we laid out a really great match, but we couldn't think of a finish. And me and Chris are debating it, and I'm like, let's do this. He's like, let's do this, and then I go, look, we can't figure it out, so why don't we just set up a backup plan? We'll set up this spot as the backup plan, and if we think of something, because he was starting to get, he wasn't the Jericho he is now. I mean, he was really close, but he wasn't quite, and he was getting a little nervous because he was like, man, we got to go on in 30 minutes, and we still don't have a finish. I go, then we'll take this as the finish, and if we think of something better in 30 minutes, you know, in 20 minutes, in 10 minutes, we'll just change it. You know, but we have a plan so that we have a backup. Yeah. You know, so we're set no matter what. It's not the most perfect finish, but it'll do because if we need something, because we don't think of something better, and then we thought of something better. But I think I'd have like more experience in him at that point, and I mean, now what he does now is unbelievable. I mean, the fact that he's still performing at that level at that age is just mind-boggling.
Right, it really is insane.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievably insane. But at that point, he didn't have the mental game as like his athletic game was top of the shelf, bar none. Yeah, untouchable. But his mental game wasn't as strong. You know, not that it was weak. It wasn't weak by any stretch of imagination, but
it hadn't evolved yet into what he would eventually become.
Yes, exactly. It hadn't evolved yet. And so, and I said, relax. I go, man, we have 30 minutes. That's a lifetime. That's hours, you know, especially if we could, like, I've been in matches where I've been in the zone where I'm sure you've done this in concerts where you're in a zone and like you can have what feels like a 10-minute conversation in 30 seconds. Like either with somebody else or with yourself. In your head, you're going, let me see, should I do this? Should I do that? well, if I do this, this will happen, but then this, and this. If I go there to go that, and you're doing all that within half a second.
Well, yeah, because you have to
slow down.
Well, you're not going to think about it when you're actually in the throw of it, right? You're not like.
Well, no, but I will. But I'm saying that's what I do when I'm in the ring.
Okay.
When I'm in the ring, in between, like if I'm in the middle of a match, and let's say something happens, and I go down, but I'm not supposed to. So then I think to myself, okay, I can stay down and sell and move on to this. I can just get right up, not sell it, but then I'm not selling it. So I should sell it. Let me think. Should I do this, that? And all that is in like half a second. But because when you're in the zone, which I know you've been in, where everything, time just slows down and you can think what feels like 10 minutes worth of thinking and all done in half a second.
Yeah. Sorry, I mistook that. I thought you were talking about right before you went out there too.
Well, that's what I was saying. But I was trying to make an analogy. So before we go out, I'm like, we have 30 minutes. I go, that's like so much time. That's an eternity.
Yeah, totally.
To come up with it, especially because we have the whole thing set up and it's really good. What we have set up, all we're missing is the last part, is just the last piece, and literally, it was so simple. We came up with the simplest thing, which ended up which I forget what it was exactly, but something I forget. But we didn't need anything more than a simple thing because we had to put all this tricky stuff in behind it, and. But I think I'd like to think that Chris learned something from that, that I was able to impart some sort of wisdom onto him.
Yeah. Well, at that point, like you said, you'd already been in the industry for quite a while. You had what I didn't realize as a kid. I'm growing up watching you on WCW. I went back and rewatched a bunch of stuff because I got the WWE Network. I was listening to the 83 Weeks podcast, and it turned me back on to everything that happened in the 90s. So I went back and watched a bunch of shit. But as I was watching back some of the WWF stuff at the time called WWF, you were a manager there for a while. Yeah. That was like, but
that was after I'd been a wrestler for 4 years.
Yeah, you had. What was the organization you were with as Johnny Flamingo before that, right? That was
okay. I was okay. So real quick synopsis. I broke in '87. In '88, I went to Memphis and worked there for 3 months. Then I went to Florida Championship Wrestling, worked there for 9 months. Then I went to Vancouver, Canada, and worked there for 1 month. Went to Portland, where I wrestled for 2 years. Portland, Oregon, where I wrestled for 2 years, and that's really where I learned how to work. Yeah, because I was working with Portland territory was always filled with guys on the upswing or guys on the tail end. So guys who were in the upswing would, if you were smart, you would learn from the guys on the tail end who've already had big careers, but had all the knowledge, And so I was lucky that the booker was this guy, the grappler, and who was when he was 19, he worked on top for Watts. So I mean, which is impressive. Yeah. So which is really impressive, and so I learned so much from him. Like, and it's not like he'd let me pick his brain. If I asked the questions, he would answer them, but he wasn't just going to go, "Hey, this is what you need to do." You know what I mean? He wouldn't just come out and teach you. But if I picked his brain, and so I would just pick his brain to death, like, and that's how I learned how to work, how to book, how to everything from him. And it's the most productive 2 years, that I had. Until I got to ECW.
It seems like you learned a lot. I mean, you obviously have a great psychology behind wrestling and a great work ethic behind it that, you could see throughout the years. Like I said, I saw you as a manager in the WWF, and then you went off to ECW. I didn't watch a lot of ECW. We didn't have it around here. I had to go back and watch some of that stuff.
Where do you live at?
Here, Orange County, California.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't on my radar. I heard a little bit about it when I was a kid, and obviously learned about it later after.
How old are you?
I'm 35. I'm 35.
So in '95, you were
11, 12 years old.
Okay, so you would have loved it then. That was the perfect age for ECW.
Oh, dude. It was. I still love it now. Now I go back and watch it. I'm like, damn, that shit was insane. But and I would have loved it. But for me, it was the heyday of when I really loved wrestling was. Pretty much when you became Raven and came over to the WCW, and there was the Monday Night Wars. That was like the heyday of wrestling for me. Like the Attitude Era came out of it. That was I like the over the top shit. Yeah, I'm starting in high school. I love the over the top shit. I I want the over-the-top storylines. I mean, I love the over-the-top wrestling as well, but I loved the over-the-top storylines that was going on.
That was the difference between me and Chris. Was like he got into the business. It was all about the moves, and I was all about the storytelling. And then Chris eventually became about the storytelling as well. And then so when you have a guy who can storytell and who can do the athletic acrobatics, that's when you got like a rare diamond in the diamond in the rough.
Diamond in the rough, yeah. No, totally. I think that's, I was going to save this for the end, but this is just too perfect of a segue into it. What do you think about wrestling today then? I mean, we're talking about it, and, I know that you were semi-recently still working with Billy Corgan, or I'm not sure if you still are in the NWA. And, just in general, I mean, COVID times, Thunderdome, AEW's got people in the crowd now. The difference of the two places, NWA coming up. I mean, this is a whole big fucking thing. That's why I was saving it. But like, well,
this is going to be disappointing for you then, because I stopped watching in 2000 when they formed the alliance with WCW and ECW against WWE.
Yeah,
and they wouldn't push anybody. They pushed none of us except the RVD got a push out of it, but that was it. And it just broke my heart. I mean, it literally broke my heart. And wrestling was so bad then. There was no other competition, so I stopped watching.
Yeah, no, I stopped watching for a long time then too. I just recently got back into it.
I started to watch when AEW started, and I watched it for a while. But after a while, it's like I've been there, done it, seen it. Unless I'm part of it, like if they would, I would have loved to have worked for them, but they weren't using what my talents, or didn't feel that they needed my talent, so they weren't interested. But if I would have worked with them, I would have kept watching religiously, obviously, because I'd work with them.
You got another product you're working on, right?
Right, exactly. But not working with by not getting a booking, by not getting hired by them, it just got me. I felt like I felt when I watch it, I feel like I want to contribute this, I want to help that, I want to do that.
Yeah.
And me and Cody have talked and stuff, but they don't. They have Cody in them, and Cody and Tony are doing the booking, so they don't need me. They don't need. And I don't think they want a committee or any kind of extras, chiming in. And plus, and so that worked to my disadvantage, and so I stopped kind of watching, what I mean? Like, it's not that I lost interest, but because I still follow what happens every week, like I have somebody send me all the highlights and stuff, what's newsworthy. But it's like at 56, if I can't be a part of it, it sounds kind of childish, but if I can't be a part of it, I want to take my ball and go home. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you've been there and done it all. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, so you said you stopped watching in like 2000, kind of rubbed you the wrong way, but you had to start watching again when you joined TNA in Impact Wrestling. So, you were there for a while.
No, I didn't have to watch it.
You just performed it.
I just performed it. Yeah. I mean, because I'm also a completist. Like, so if I watch wrestling, I got to watch every show. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I can't just watch. I'd have to watch Raw. I'd have to watch SmackDown. That's 5 hours a week of TV.
Yeah, I haven't kept up. I haven't kept up that close. There's too much wrestling now. It was a lot easier when I was fucking 12 years old, and there was two fucking things to watch.
Right, and it was only an hour show.
Yeah,
but I would watch tapes. I'd watch VHS tapes once I got into business to improve. And I mean, I used to watch tons of wrestling, but so now if part of it is I'd have to watch 7 hours of wrestling because 2 hours of AEWs. That's plus the 5 in New York, WWE's the 7, and I can't. So and I can't just watch like an hour and like, well, I'll find out what happens next week, because if I'm going to get engrossed in the storylines, I want to be engrossed in them. Which means I need to know what happens, which means I have to watch them. And there's too much other good TV out.
Yeah,
there's
well,
so much good TV,
so
or at least there was until COVID hit.
Yeah, well, no, now it's just all the streaming stuff is really good. Like,
Netflix. There's so much good stuff.
I can't keep up with it, to be honest. I got a 3.5-year-old kid. You got a kid. How's he doing, by the way? I know that.
No, I don't have a kid. I don't have any kids.
You don't have any kids? Oh, was it?
No.
Were those just actors then? When you had the ECW rivalry Sandman, that you had your quote unquote wife and kid as a part of that at the end?
No, that was WCW.
It was ECW with Sandman.
Oh no, that's his wife and kid. I stole his wife and kid.
That's what it was.
Yeah. I stole his wife and kid. I mean, and he
that makes the story even better. I love it.
yeah. And his wife, his son always calls me dad, his real dad, and he says,
"See, that's the over the top, ridiculous shit that I love."
Yeah, well, that's why I got into. So back to what I was saying before was, so I got into wrestling for the soap opera of it, the storyline, the storytelling, and like for an example, Chris got into it for he did all the high spots.
Yeah,
and then he started to finally care about the storytelling eventually, and then he became a great storyteller. But he started out as more of a high spot guy. And it's like, it's funny, like you can, like the greatest move I've ever seen was done by Elix Skipper, and nobody remembers it. They had a cage in TNA. It was a high cage, like 10 feet, 15 feet, whatever. And he walked on the top, like the rope walk, like the Undertaker does.
Yeah.
He rope walked the top of the cage, 15 feet up, and then Frankensteinered the guy off, Daniels off the top. And it wasn't even the finish. Wasn't the finish. No, they went on and did other stuff.
That's amazing.
And I used to tell Elix, I go, you did the greatest move in history of the business. Nobody even remembers it because
it wasn't the finish.
It wasn't the finish, and you didn't tell a story building to it.
Yeah.
And that's why, to me, it's like watching a movie where it's all car crashes. It's like, I like it occasionally. I like to see a movie with all car crashes, but I really want a movie where there's a plot. Like,
totally.
There's nothing better than a good, like Die Hard. Die Hard was an action movie. It was all burns and crashes and shootouts, but it was a plot.
A great plot too. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I've always been for the plot. So ECW was where where it was the perfect blend, because Paulie, that's it. He loves that kind of episodic storytelling, and so did I. And so I was able to do like all the greatest, coolest storylines and angles. Dreamer couldn't pin me for 2.5 years. We went to summer camp together. I came up with this idea that we went to summer camp together, and that there was a fat girl who quick story.
I'm loving this story already, by the way.
Okay. So I was in the Super Bowl. I was at the Super Bowl one year with my buddies, and we ran into Ronnie Gant from the Atlanta Braves, and this girl he was with. And she's like, oh, and Ronnie's like, this is Scotty, and this is Teresa. And I'm like, hey, she's like, oh, she's a wrestler. She says, oh, I want to get back into wrestling. I go, you were in the wrestling business? She goes, yeah. She's really hot, the Penthouse Pet. And she's like, yeah. She goes, I used to be Pillman's sister in Calgary. We did an angle. I was like, oh, yeah, give me your pictures. I'll give them to Paulie. So I show Paulie. Paulie's like, yeah, bring her in. She'll make you your valet. I'm like, I don't need a valet, even though I'd always had one before. I was like, I don't think I need one. He's like, yeah, you do. I was like, all right. So I came up with the idea where she was the fat girl from summer camp that me and Tommy Dreamer were. She was in love with him, but he didn't care about her because she was a fat girl. And I would just bang her as his sloppy seconds, right? And then so Stevie brings her out on an episode, and he goes, I brought out your, and so I gave her the most ridiculous name ever, Beulah McGillicuddy. So all you have is this picture in your mind of a zip-faced fat girl, right? And out comes this extremely hot Penthouse Pet. And so but with Stevie brings her out, he's like, I brought her back for you, boss. And I'm like, oh, you idiot, because I didn't know what she was going to look like. So I always used to slap him, but every once in a while I'd give him the backhand.
Yeah.
And the backhand is more dismissive.
Yeah.
So I'd save it, and it hurts too. Like Stevie would go, oh, like in the back, he'd be like, oh, boss, not the backhand. I'm like, we got to do the backhand tonight. So I give him the backhand, but then she comes out and she's gorgeous. And then so then it just ties in even more, just making up that little bit of backstory boosted the feud immensely. Like if I would have just brought her in as a valet, it would have been okay, but it wouldn't have been anything special. But tying it in that way, and everybody knows somebody who slept with the fat girl, or whatever. And Tommy Dreamer is always better than me at everything, and it just made the feud instantly hot.
Yeah, totally. And what I love about that is, then for me, I'm not the professional you are, but for me, I would imagine it helps with the in-ring work too. You can find angles in the in-ring work to incorporate that storyline where it's like some moment happens in there, and it just seems like it would be more fun. I mean, for any other reason, but just more fun in the fucking ring. I mean, I gotta imagine.
Even more so, what's great is then there's so much more heat on the match, so you can do so much less and get so much more of a reaction. It's like we would always do some big bump early so that we both had something to sell. And so then it's like I always used to say my favorite spot of a match was when I'm getting up from the ground and I'm halfway up, I'm halfway down, and you don't know whether I'm going to fall over or stand up. And Tommy's laying on the ground and people are booing and they're going, they want him to get up first, but I'm getting up first, but I'm unsteady. And you can just, right there, that can last 10, 15 seconds. And the people are just in the palm of your hand, just waiting, just praying that he'll get up, praying that I'll fall back down. And we're not even doing a single thing but him laying there and me trying to stand up and the place is coming unglued, And that to me, moments like that are the best thing in wrestling because the people are so invested emotionally, which is why wrestling is so popular. And why people trounce it so much that when it's not done well. Because when wrestling's done right, it's the greatest thing. And when it's done poorly, it's the worst.
Yeah.
Unless it's done really poorly and then it's entertaining again.
I love that you said that because that's totally true. But I also love that you said there's other great things about wrestling. You mentioned Tommy Dreamer too. I know that we met through our mutual friend who's director of this show. Brandon Lombardo, and he said he'd kill me if you didn't mention the T-shirt you're doing with Tommy Dreamer of the chair shot heard around the world.
Yeah, we're doing a T-shirt to commemorate how many years it's been. I forget.
To 25?
95, so 25 years.
Yeah, 25 years. Yeah.
Yeah, because what had happened was we in the feud we started the minute I got there. We started a feud, and the whole storyline was he could never pin me. Like he'd beat me up, leave me laying, but then somehow I'd win the match or somehow I'd end up on top. Somebody would come in and screw him over or something would happen. And I kept, and in the beginning, I kept leaving him bloody, leaving him like in a bloody heap. So finally, to get his first big revenge on me was he had me handcuffed to the cage in my crucifix position. Yep. And I also told Tommy, I want you to hit the same pose as me, the crucifix. Because Raven thinks he's a martyr for society's dysfunction. That's why he stands like a cross. And I want you to do the same thing because you're the good guy version of that. Like I wanted him to be like my antithesis, because I tied us, which tied us together forever. I mean, we were still feuding, 25 years later. And so he has me tied in. So they wanted to give me like 10 chair shots. And I'm like, and they're debating how many to give me. And I'm like, I'm taking one. They're like, oh, 10. They're like, you fucking pussy. They're like, and this is before we really knew that it caused concussions. They're like, you pussy. I go, look, I'll tell you what, if you want to give me 10, give me 9 back here, but I'm only taking 1 out there because 1 they'll remember and I'll sell it like I'm dead. If you give me a bunch of them, they're not going to mean anything.
Yeah.
And Paulie was adamant that we had to do more. And Tommy was like, and Tommy, bless his heart, he always, if I was sold on an idea, he would back me on it. Because when I was wrong, I would tell him I admit I was wrong. I'd always admit when I was wrong, and I had so much more experience, so he'd always back me. So he said, "Paulie, we'll go with Raven's idea," and they hit me with the 1 chair shot. It became legendary. It became part of the opening, and so and he hit me with the 1 chair shot. I crumpled. My head went down. He hit the pose on his knees in front of me, went out in the audience and hit the pose with the audience is cheering around him. It was amazing visuals. And it lived on and it still lives on. But there's the example of if I'd have done 10 of them, it would have been like, it would have been, nobody would have cared. And It would have been like Elix Skipper. If I hate the fact that he did the greatest move ever, and nobody even remembers it.
Yeah, that's a shame.
Or talks about it, and he didn't even win the match with it. It didn't even end the match. How do you not end the match with the greatest move ever?
Speaking of one of the greatest moves ever, though, man, I gotta say I was the biggest fan of your toe drag into the chair. You set up the chair and do the ankle or toe drag, whatever. Yeah, and everyone's face you just hit. And I saw some of the best sells on that ever when people would hit that. It was, I mean, where did you come up with that spot? And what was the? Did you have to affect the Ravens rules so that you can use that? Is that kind of the psychology that every time you had? Because Ravens rules basically no disqualification.
Right. So what happened? Okay, so the Raven rules thing, that was Terry Taylor's idea, because in ECW the rules were vaguely enforced.
Yeah.
Like, in fact, they had a heel referee who enforced the rules.
No one liked that guy.
Yeah, he was the evil referee because all he did was enforce the rules, so the people hated him.
Yeah, I love that.
It was amazing. But so the rules are really lax, so you could always bring a chair into your match and nobody cared. The refs didn't care, But I always try to do things behind the ref's back, even when there are no rules. Like, even when they gave me the Ravens rules matches, I still always did everything behind the referee's back because there's more heat on it. Because you think to yourself, well, why is there heat? The referee, you can do it in front of him. Yeah, but people don't remember that. The minute you go behind the ref's back to do something, people are like, oh, he's cheating. Viscerally, they react to it, forgetting I'm allowed to cheat. Like, I didn't even want Ravens rules. I mean, I'm glad they have them because it's a thing.
Yeah.
But I never really actually used them. I always just, made sure I did all my cheating behind the ref's back for more, heat. But the way I came up with the move was I actually stole it from Shane Douglas. Did it one night, and I thought, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen.
It's a really rad move.
It's using a chair. It's so clever. It's using a chair, but you're not swinging a chair, so you're not killing the guy, and you're using a wrestling move. And I thought, man, that's the greatest thing I've ever seen. I was like, and I went up to Shane. I was like, that is so cool. He's like, you want it? He goes, yeah. I go, yeah. He goes, it's yours. I'm like, I'll take it. And so I was like, so I made it into a signature spot,
Yeah.
And
I loved it as a kid, I mean, still love it today. I think it was a great spot.
It's also the single easiest bump there is to take. Like, there's nothing to do except you just fall on a chair, you just plant your head on a chair, but you're basically, your knees hit first and you smash the chair with your hand to make the noise. And you couldn't get hurt if you tried to get hurt taking a drop to hold on the chair. Easiest move ever.
Yeah, I agree, but I do have to say it probably is the easiest bump to take, but I got to say, like, some were better than others at it. Like
who took it? Taz took it great. Somehow Taz, when he would take it, he'd hit with his head, and then he'd pop his arm up, and which would catch the lip of the chair, the top where your back rests, and fly the chair 15 feet into the air. It was amazing, and because you would think, okay, well, that's shouldn't be that hard to do, but his timing was so perfect because everybody else has ever tried that. It looks like they were throwing the chair with their arm.
Yeah.
Well, with the way Taz did it, it just looked like he hit the chair and it went flying up in the air.
Yeah, he went so hard. Yeah, that's impressive right there. It's impressive.
Yeah.
Speaking of Ravens rules, though, and where that inspiration was from and what that character was really, what it was about, a lot of it, you had a lot of different band T-shirts at the time coming out, a lot of grunge stuff. You had some different theme music over the years.
Yeah, when did you guys start?
When did you
guys hit it big? Yeah, when did you guys hit it big?
Oh, well, we started the band formed in 1999. I joined in 2002. It's hard to say where we hit it big. I mean, the Backcountry came out in 2005. That was probably our biggest video at that time,
That's what I was thinking. Yeah, I was thinking you didn't come out till after I was pretty much done.
Yeah.
I know. I was just curious. Yeah, I was just trying to figure that out because I'm sure I would have worn one of your shirts if you would have been famous at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you probably could have in Impact there. What were the years there in Impact?
But by Impact, I was wearing mostly superhero comic book shirts.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
I love that. So my question was basically, what was your throughout those different theme songs and shirts or whatever. Like, what was your favorite entrance that you ever had? Is there like one you can remember where like the entrance music was just right, the walk down was perfect, or is that just kind of like whatever? It is what it is every time.
Yeah, it is what it is. But there's two favorite kinds of entrances for me. The one before I became Raven, when I was Scotty the Body, I used to come out in Portland, and I'd come out to that song Dino. That's the way it has to be, because that's the way I like it.
Yeah,
and I would come out dancing, and that was always fun because it just got so much heat. But then once I went and became Raven, just the ECW, I loved the Offspring song, and I thought what I liked about it was it goes chick, 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 you got, and then it says you got to keep them separated. Mm-hmm. But I like there's the little clicky noise, the chicka chicka chick. So it's like, oh wait, is that Raven's music? And then you hear you got to keep, and you hear like the verbiage, you got to keep them separated, and then the song just immediately kicks in, and it's perfect for an entrance music, So it's like. So like I wait behind the curtain until the chick, you gotta keep them separated. The curtain opens up, hit the pose, and it's just really perfect, for entrance music.
Yeah, no, that's a great description of it. That is absolutely perfect. Well, what are some of the other musical interests you have? Like, is there today, yesteryear, whatever? What are you listening to?
I listen to podcasts now. I got tired of you reach a certain age, you stop listening to current music more or less, unless you're a musician. But if you're not a musician, it's like I always wondered why my parents listened to 60s music, or Frank Sinatra type stuff. But they didn't, listen to any current stuff. And then I've noticed just, anecdotally that people around 35, 40 stop listening to what's current and just go back to what they listen to.
That's where I'm at. I still listen to new music because I kind of have to, but right. Honestly, when I'm just listening to what I want to listen to, and I'm still going back to the same shit I listened to. So, 10 years ago.
And my theory is people listen to the music when they were age 10. That's what they go back to, like around 8 to 10, because that's what they're like. So for me, I would go back to the 70s, and I grew up in Philadelphia, so the top 40 would be. The 70s were crazy. Like, you had Led Zeppelin, on the radio, you'd hear Zeppelin, you'd hear Barry White,
Yeah,
and on the same radio station. On the same radio station.
Yeah.
They would just play it, whatever it was, and so I had a really eclectic taste. I love Philly soul music, like funky dance music.
Yeah.
And classic rock. And that's what I would always go back to. And then, but like for you, you're 10, 11, and 95, so you probably go back to grunge music, I guess.
Yeah, grunge and punk rock. But I grew up on classic rock and metal from my dad, and then my mother listened to all the pop stuff, which I liked as well, like Michael Jackson in the 80s and stuff. So in the 80s, I was still listening to songs of the 70s, and I was really into oldies music too. There's a station here in Southern California called K-Earth. It's still oldies, but it's really funny now. Every once in a while I go check it out. And now it's playing stuff from the 80s. When I was a kid, it was playing stuff from the 50s and 60s. And I loved that.
Yeah. Well, that's like now when you hear a classic rock station, they'll play Guns N' Roses.
Yeah.
Which to
and
me
I remember when I went out and bought Use Your Illusions 1 and 2 on tape. And I was like, this is brand new. This is fucking awesome.
Right. I mean, to me, the 70s, the classic rock ended in the late mid 70s is when classic rock ended. What I grew up on, classic rock was classic rock from like 68, 69 to 74, 75, But now it's, goes all the way up to, I don't know, I bet it would probably even include, Stone Temple Pilots would be classic rock now.
Oh, that just makes me feel really bad.
Yeah, isn't it weird?
Yeah.
There's this bar in Atlanta when I first moved here. I first moved here in 90. I live in Atlanta. I moved here in 92. We lived here for a year or two. Then I moved away, and then I came back in 97. Mm-hmm. And ever since so from 92, there was this place called Johnny's Hideaway where like 60 and 70-year-olds went, or 50s and 50-year-old people and 60-year-old people went. And then I came back in 97. It was still the oldies club where people like there were 50, 60, 70 went to. And then now 2020, it's still the place where people like, I guess people my age now, I'm that age, people in their 60s and 70s still go to it. Like, it's been an oldies bar. Like,
it just naturally comes that way. Like, when you get to that certain age, you're just like, that's what you do.
Yeah, I guess that's like when you turn like 50, you go, okay, I guess that's where I go now if I still want to go out and drink. But it's so weird that the bars it's outlasted every single nightclub in Atlanta.
Oh man,
catering to the same crowd, but the crowd that it catered to in 1992 is dead. Because they were 60 then, 65 then. So,
it makes sense though. Like, we talked about your sobriety. I'm still a drinker, but at 35, I rarely go out I almost never go out to a club anymore. But like, I rarely even go to a bar. I go to restaurants where I can sit and have like a nice meal and drink and have conversation, not get up and dance and go crazy and take shots and shit. That kind of just starts to happen at a certain age, right? You just don't like it anymore. And that goes back to like our music and podcasting. I recently got into podcasting right before I started the show. And I was like, fucking podcast. This is really cool. I get to learn interesting things, and there's a million different shows out there that I could pick from, all these different things. This is super fun, and get to know people. And like,
you have it tougher than me, because I got a couple people that I do it with. We don't have guests.
Yeah.
And like, guests got to be a pain in the ass, because every once in a while we'll have one, and organizing it and setting it up and making sure they're on time and making sure they can do it that day. And then the day before they're like, oh, I can't make it then. Can you make it an hour later? And it's got to be a pain in the ass. Like,
I've gotten lucky so far. I'm just enjoying this, man. Like, that. Obviously, this is like a little side thing for me. It's purely fun at this point. Like, I'm getting to meet people like you through it that I never thought I would be able to. And like, it's just really fun to have a conversation with someone like you. Then like, find out what makes you tick. Just like we're just shooting the shit here. Like, I know it's interview based because I do some notes and stuff, and I want to, I don't want to sit here and look like I don't know anything, but like, but it's really more of a conversation, right?
Right. But that's like mine is me. It's just me and a couple buddies just talking shit. Like, we keep everything in, no matter how bloopery or mistake ridden it is, it stays in.
I love it, by the way. I started listening to it last month, and I've gone through quite a few of them. I haven't gone through the whole catalog. You've been at it for a minute. So there's a lot. And let's just plug that real quick. The Raven Effect is another podcast you guys all need to check out. It's absolutely hilarious. What are your co-host names again? I'm drawing a blank right now.
Yeah, it's Joe Feeney and Rich Bocchini. The Feeney Bocchini, the Eeny Meeny Miny brothers.
That's what it is. And you guys just have you guys just shoot this shit, but like, obviously you guys have had a rapport for a long time. And
no, that's the weird thing. That's the really weird thing is, originally it was me and my best friend, or one of my best friends did it. This guy, Chad Damiani, and who's so hilarious. He's a screenwriter in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. So we did the show for over 100 episodes. And then at some point when we were changing networks, he's like, that's it. He goes, I got too much other stuff on my plate. I just don't have the time, even though you think it's only an hour a week, but his schedule, the scheduling, and it's more of a, you want to be on the top. He wants to be on the top of his game. I mean, we don't prepare anything. We never prepared any material for it. It was just, we just winged it, because it makes us laugh. It's like, basically it was like me and him catching up on the phone for an hour every week and letting everybody else listen to our conversation. And but his schedule got really crazy. And so the girlfriend was complaining, and, there's a lot of stuff. And so he stepped down. So they gave me, so I got, this guy, Rich Bocchini, to try him out as a partner. And he was going through a divorce. He was kind of mopey at the time. So I was like,
that's great podcasting.
yeah. And, well, now he's great. Now he's happy. But he was kind of mopey. So then this other guy that had done some work done some stuff for me, helped me find some, I forget, it's a long story, but suffice to say, he also was on Conan's podcast. Oh, okay. And so I was like, well, I know what it was. He asked me to do his podcast. Joe Feeney asked me to do his podcast. And I did it, and he was really entertaining. I was like, well, why don't you just join us in ours, and we'll have a threesome. And so the three of us just clicked, and we just get along really well. And it's different than it was with me and Busby. That was Chad Damiani's nickname, my nickname for him.
Yeah.
But it's different than me and Busby in the sense that he's a funny, like he's a comedy writer, you know what I mean? And he's also a comedy, you know, he does stand up. And these guys are funny, but they're less funny and more, because Rich is kind of like a straight up, you know, hockey announcer kind of guy. And Feeney's just kind of laid back. But it works though. Like I thought at the beginning when I was like, maybe I shouldn't keep doing this because I'm not having fun. But then I started to have fun again. Like Rich took some got on a medication, and it cured his mopiness. And sometimes you got to. I mean, I saw a shrink. I swear by shrinks.
Oh, absolutely. I see therapists not as regularly anymore, but it's
right.
You got to keep that. Yeah. You got to keep that brain right, man.
but it's important that guys like us talk about it. That it's okay because there's such a stigma still on mental health that people are like. I've had more people go to me. Which really means a lot is when they say because you were willing to talk about it, I went to a shrink. You know,
that's great. Yeah.
And so keep that in mind. And don't just blow it off. You know, because I'm sure you're going to have fans that are going to tell you that the fact that you mentioned that gives them license to say, you know what, if he can do it, if he's not embarrassed about doing it, then I won't be, and I'll go get some help, you know? And it's important.
That's true. Yeah. And like I just said, everyone watching and listening right now. Yeah. I have a regular therapist that I talk to. Just it's good to get all your thoughts and everything in line or whatever is bothering you or anything like that.
It's like if you have a broken arm, you go get a cast put on it. You go see a doctor, he puts a cast. If you have a chemical imbalance in your brain, you have to get something done for it, whether it's by talking it through and whether it's a chemical imbalance or it's just you have issues. But if you have a chemical imbalance, then you got to be on some kind of medication to balance it out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, so Rich stopped being mopey, and Feeney started being funny like I knew he could. And then I started to have fun again. I was like, oh, I'm not going to stop doing this now. Like, you know, so I almost did, but I'm glad I stuck it out, and now I'm having a great time doing it again.
Well, speaking of therapy, doing podcasts and stuff could be very therapeutic. Like, having this conversation.
The Raven character is therapeutic.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like, yeah, I got to exercise all my demons, although really it just made them worse. I realized in the long run, but that's a whole nother story. But yeah, but
it's not a whole nother story. We're talking right now.
well, what happened was I became okay. The character was art imitating life because it was based on me and the internal me. Mm-hmm. Because I was always loud, funny, and obnoxious, but inside I was the clown who was crying on the inside. But nobody knew that because I was a good enough actor to hide it. And although I don't know how they didn't notice it because but anyway, so art imitated life.
You could pat yourself on the back. I think you did a great job of with that character. Like that. You don't need to be so modest all the time.
Right. Well, no, but I'm saying like I wanted people to realize I was crying on the inside, and nobody noticed. Like, or nobody cared, maybe, but. But
I wasn't around for that, so
No, but it's just weird though. Like, you think, like I used to be really egotistical and, but it's because I was insecure, but people didn't realize that. They just thought I was an egomaniac, not realizing that the only reason anybody's an egomaniac is because they're insecure.
Yeah.
That's why they have to brag about themselves so to convince them that they're worthwhile, you know? And,
everyone's run into someone like that at a certain point, right? Or is that person, at a certain point? Everyone has their insecurities, and you try and make up for them, in some way.
Yeah, yeah. Being egotistical is so annoying. It's so toxic to your friendships, and it's really exhausting to be as well. But
I'll bet.
But anyway, so art imitated life. Raven was like Scott Levy, and then but times 10. But then life started to imitate art because then I felt like I had to live up to who Raven was. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, totally.
Sense?
Yeah, totally.
And,
no, it makes complete sense to me.
Yeah, so I had to start living up to who I thought I had to live up. So my drinking got worse, my drugging got worse. Not to say that it wouldn't have anyway, but but it wouldn't have piled
help.
on so rapidly.
It definitely didn't help.
Yeah, it did not help whatsoever. And then eventually, I got clean, and then I decided to go. I was listening to some old timer brag one day in the locker room. Mm-hmm. And like old timers are always bragging about the houses they drew. It's like a walking live person meme. Like, oh, back in my day, I drew this. So we are hanging off the rafters, and I was like, man, and I was probably 40 then. I was like, I don't want to be 60 or 55 bragging to young guys about the houses I drew. I don't want to. I got to see a shrink, and I finally started seeing a therapist, and then it worked wonders. I mean, because. I'm still a work in progress, but as we all are, yeah. You can't, but that's the thing. It's the journey. It's not I used to think that's a stupid saying. It's not the destination. It's the journey. I want to get where I want to be, but you realize you're never really going to get 100% to where you want to be because you can't. I don't think it's possible. But I'm really content and. I still have bouts of FOMO, fear of missing out.
I'm a bit. I have, dude. I have that all the time, and I don't mean from your perspective. You're talking about like the profession and everything like that. I have that's part of what I have therapy for. Is I have a fear of missing out when my friends hang out without me. I'm like,
oh no, I'm the same way. I'm the same way.
Oh man, you can't. What am I doing? Why am I sitting here at home being good?
Right. Well, it's like my friends used to make fun of me because we'd go to a club and we'd and I'm like, all right, let's go someplace else. It's like, why? This place is good. I go, yeah, but someplace else could be better. So I would take us out and sometimes I'd elevate till we got to the bottom. Yeah. I'd take us, this club's even better. One more better. And then I'm like, and then we go to one more and it's terrible. And we're like, we should have stayed. But but a lot of times, that would happen, or but yeah, I just had I had a terrible fear of missing out, and it still rears its head every so often. It's like, it's weird. It's like I'll go to when I stay in a hotel, and I'll think everybody's down at the bar, and I'm like, the hotel bar, and I'm like, man, I should go down there. I bet they're having fun, and I'm like, but then I'm like, I don't even want to go. I'd rather go to my room and read or watch TV. Yeah. But part of me is making me is obsessing about what I'm missing out on, and it's terrible.
Yeah.
But, it's apparently it's a lot more widespread. I used to think I was the only one that had that. So.
Oh no, not at all.
I know that, but I'm saying, but that's how it feels. Though,
totally. Like everyone else.
Totally feels like we're the only person that suffers that.
Yeah. At the time, it absolutely does.
Yeah.
That's funny. Back to your podcast, though, real quick. You said you mentioned a couple times about, you went through different networks because you've been doing this for 7 years now, if I'm not mistaken, something like that.
No, not quite that long. No. It's been like 3 or 4, I think.
Is that it?
I think so.
Okay. Well, either way, that's a lot longer than I've been doing. Right.
I started a video blog back in 2012 or 2013 or something, but I couldn't find any way to monetize it, so I gave it up because I was lazy.
That's what it was. So that's where I came up with the 7 years. Okay,
that's what I figured. So that's why I brought it up. But then I had no way to monetize it. Then podcasts got big all of a sudden. I was like, damn, I got to get on one of those. But I didn't know anybody or have any hookups because I was just doing indie shows and I was out in the wilderness. And Jericho called me up and said, "Hey, I'd like you to have your own podcast on my network." And then so he hooked me up and gave me a show, and then I just been doing it ever since.
Yeah. Are you on a new network now, though? Are you on or is that the same one?
We're MLW.
Yeah.
MLW
radio. Yeah.
We started out on podcast 1, I think, or something. And then we went to Westwood 1.
Okay, Westwood 1. Yeah.
And then the Westwood 1, then. I think because everybody by that point, by the time we were there, everybody had a podcast. I jumped in it. I got there about 3 years, 2 years too late. But I got there also 2 years before it really got slammed, 2 or 3 years before it became like, everybody in their, doing somebody's podcast is like doing jury duty.
Oh, I hope you feel that way today.
I'm enjoying this. But
yeah, no, I get it. I see there's a, like I said at the top, there's a million other fucking podcasts out there. Like everybody's got podcasts, like you said. Like
everybody has a podcast. Apparently, I remember being told by one of our producer that that if you have over the top 1% of podcasts gets over 1,000 listeners. So basically, that means that 99% of podcasts aren't even getting 1,000 listeners, which is pretty low. I mean,
that's not great.
That's not good. That's not good. But it's bizarre that's
because there's so many out there. Yeah, absolutely. There's
Then there's some like Rogan's that do such zillion dollar numbers that it's ridiculous.
Dude, that's the godfather of podcasts. I mean, he's been doing it since podcasts started, though. Too, you got to think of it that way too.
Yeah.
Like
but it's also because it's good.
It is really good. I enjoy Joe Rogan for sure. Do you listen to any other podcasts? So we mentioned Joe Rogan. What other podcasts do you listen to?
Okay, so I listen to the Higher Side Chats. Which is a alternative history, alternative like UFOs, conspiracy stuff like that. That's kind of that podcast. It's really really good, and I listen to that, and then I listen to. Although lately he's just had a lot of guests to talk about the current. Like usually he always has a wide variety of guests, but lately I haven't been listening as much because he has been getting a lot on the COVID and stuff like that, which I just think is played out. You know what I mean? And in the current situations, but him, I listen to that. I listen to Rogan's podcast, but I just with both of them I pick and choose which guests. Like if I don't think the guest sounds interesting, I don't bother. Like I skip the episode. How did this get made? Which I listened to when they like it. With that's a podcast with this guy Jason Mantzoukas, Paul Scheer, and a woman, I forget her name, Diane from Ralphus, Paul Scheer's wife.
Okay.
And but Jason Mantzoukas is one of the funniest people alive. And they're both comedians, and they basically talk about movies. How did this get made? Like how did these so they have them in their audience watch a shitty movie. And then they talk about why did this get made and all the
that
flubs
sounds right up my alley. I'm gonna have to check this podcast out.
It's amazing, but unfortunately, unless I've seen the movie, it's no fun because you feel like you're missing a third. A third guest is talking in French and you don't understand what they're talking about.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I'll be like, and some of the movies are so bad, like I can't even begin to watch them. Like even though this is one I watched, I forget what it's called. Just because I was missing the podcast and there wasn't an episode in a while that I'd seen the movie, and it was so bad. I was like, oh, why am I watching this? But then it was worth it when I listened to the hour and a half, 2 hours of them just making fun of it and talking about the director's vision and what an idiot he was and stuff like that. So I listen to that occasionally. Gilbert Gottfried's podcast, depending on who the guest is.
I didn't realize he had a pod. Well, as we said, everyone's got a podcast. So I didn't realize he
had one for a long time, though. He's
sure,
actually had one for a long time.
Yeah, most of the comedians do. And they're most of them are really good. It's like listening to their comedy routine.
I listen to I just started listening to this one called Whiskey Ginger.
Oh, I've seen that. Yeah. I've seen that one actually.
He's funny as shit. So, and he has comedians as guests, so they're funny as shit. Whereas when Rogan has comedians on, they don't like Rogan's really hilarious, but I like him when he has a serious guest that I want to listen to. But it seems like when he has a comedy guest, they don't just try to make each other laugh. You know what I mean? Like they talk about something serious. So I'd rather wait for, So, but with redneck whiskey ginger. I mean, ginger, redneck, redhead ginger, whatever. Whiskey ginger. He just tries to make the other guest laugh, and the guest tries to make him laugh. So I love that.
Yeah, that's the entertaining stuff. You mentioned movies though, and rewatching. What are some good movies that you're watching right now? And, you know, as we went over the psychology and the writing of your characters over the years and matches, have you ever thought about getting into acting on like a movie or TV show?
I've done a few roles, but basically I never really had the time when I was wrestling, and then once I stopped wrestling full time, I didn't really. I lived in Atlanta, so it wasn't until recently that the market became like a hotbed for movies, you know. And then it was just a matter of going out and getting an agent, and I just hadn't got around to it. I was just, I'm like, I don't know. It's like the idea of auditioning is really a pain in the ass for me. You know, I feel like it won't be any fun. And it'll be embarrassing. And I went through that when I was 20. I didn't mind. I'd do anything. You know, you do whatever you can to get to get a booking. You know, look like an idiot. But at 56, I'm like, you know, I don't have that kind of burning desire to do it, and financially, I don't need to. Yeah. But I think then I finally decided to get off my ass. And right when COVID hit, I was finally decided to get off my ass, and I was going to get an agent, and then COVID hit. Yeah. But also, the other thing is the compounds my laziness is the fact I got a really bad sleep disorder. So even though I use a CPAP, and even though I go to bed, I wake up like 20, 30 times a night sometimes.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's
so when I wake up in the morning,
yeah.
So the next day when I wake up, I'm exhausted. So, you know, so a lot of that kept me like I'd go on the road for the weekends to do to wrestle, and then that would throw off my sleep cycle, and it wouldn't be till Thursday till I was ready to be back to normal, and then I'd go back on the road Friday. Yeah. So there's a lot of life I missed out on for the last 5-6 years, maybe longer. You know, where I didn't live my life to its fullest because, you know, I was exhausted all the time. You know? And it's gotten a lot better. I mean, a lot better.
That's good.
And, but I still have to take a nap every day. I mean, literally have to take a nap. Not like, I can take a nap.
Yeah, no, I got you. Yeah, I always take a nap, but that's because well, when I'm on the road, I always take a nap. I don't take naps anymore.
No, I know, and they're great, but I'm saying, but I have to take one or else, like, and I can't, if I go to bed before 1:30, my circadian rhythms are so screwed up that if I go to bed before 1:30, my brain thinks it's a nap. So then I sleep like even worse than I normally do.
Oh shit.
Yeah. So it's I hate talking about it because it's so screwy, and people just say, I just gut it out, which I do gut it out, but it doesn't leave you, you know, it leaves me, you know, basically on a typical day by 5, like I wake up at 10:30, by 5 o'clock, I'm ready for a nap, you know, ready to, and so I spend half an hour watching TV. Then I'll lay in bed till from 5 to 6 watching TV, and take a nap from 6:30 to 6 to 7, 6:30 to 7, something like that. And then it takes me another 30, 40 minutes to wake up and get my shit together. So then it's like, then 8 o'clock I can start doing stuff again. But then by 11, I'm exhausted again. So it's,
sleep's a real thing that people need too. I mean, I've got a couple buddies that have trouble sleeping, and it really does. In all seriousness, it affects everything. Well, like
so I've allowed it for a long time. I just put up with. I mean, I just suffered with it, but I didn't. You know, but then I finally got tired of not living life, so I started pushing myself and trying to push through it. I've had like 8 sleep studies so far. And they still haven't figured out how exactly to cure it. But what was I saying? Oh yeah. And it also screws up my memory, because when you're sleeping, that's when all your memory is compiled and filed and ordered. And for years I slept so badly that my memory was turned to shit. And I used to have a great memory, but man, it's like, you know, now I call it the lost years, you know, where, so, you know, it's long story short is it complicated my life, but it beats the hell out of having cancer or something like that, you know. So I'm never going to complain about it in the sense, woe is me.
Totally.
I might be like, this sucks, but I'm never going to be like, why me?
Yeah.
You know, because look, I mean, it could be worse than having to take a nap. You know what I mean?
Totally.
And having to sleep, for a while, for a long time, I had to sleep like 10 hours a night, and take a nap.
Yeah.
But now I'm down to 8 hours in a nap. And, but I allowed it to overrun my life and keep me from making, and then it's ironic, just as I was finally pushing through completely and just not allowing it to get in my way at all and just taking more road bookings again and stuff. Cause I even stopped taking bookings for 6 months, but then COVID hit and I was like, well, I'll just wait till COVID hit. And I thought that'd be 3 months. And then now it's, 8 months.
Yeah. I think that it changed everyone's plans. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. No, just me. It only affected me.
All right, I'm gonna let you go in a second, but I have to ask about. We touched upon it a little bit earlier, but your relationship with Billy Corgan, who's running NWA over there, and also on your Raven Effect podcast, you have Smashing Pumpkins theme song, or as your theme song starting up the thing. So, what's the relationship like? I know you've spoken upon it a couple of times. You were like an assistant over there for him, or what was that?
His first company originally. We met in ECW like once in the bathroom. I was going, or I was about to go, and he was leaving, and then I think he was getting ready to film a video that had a WADA or something, and he wanted me to be in it with him, and we started talking, and we got along really well, and then he started a promotion, and called Resistance, and he had me be like an assistant to him there, his wrestling expert, and then and we've stayed in touch ever since. His NWA, I'm not working with him on that, but we still talk every so often, and we're just we're good buddies. And I asked him one time because I wanted to use his theme music for his music for my theme for my podcast. He's like, yeah, sure. So he didn't even charge me, so it's awesome.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Yeah, you can't beat that. It's good. It's good to know people.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to know people, and it's good to know you now. It's been an absolute pleasure talking
meeting
to you,
man.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's keep in touch. Maybe we can hang in person sometime and have this chat again. Not this chat, another chat.
Not the same chat. I love a different chat.
Yeah. But another thing that I always ask people like to plug their social media, but I couldn't find yours. Do you not have any social media?
The Raven Effect.
The Raven Effect. Okay. Is that on Instagram and Twitter and everything?
Basically, I do Twitter, and I'm gonna start Instagramming, but I just haven't got around to it. And Facebook, I'm just I could take it or leave it. So what I write on Twitter, I post on Twitter like once a day just to keep my name out there. Mm-hmm. Like I'll find a picture that looks amusing, and I'll write a funny caption to it, and I'll do that every day. And then it just goes on Facebook too. But and then I interact a little bit with the fans on Twitter. But Twitter's basically all I do. But I'm going to start doing Instagram because I guess there's a lot of money in that.
Is there? I have an Instagram. I didn't get any fucking money on that one.
Well, no, but apparently my buddy wants to take over my account, and because he says he thinks I can get some influencer money out of it. So I was like, if you want to, yeah, that's great.
Right on. Well, everyone go check that out. Raven Effect.
I'll let you know if it works out.
Please do. And then give me that guy's number.
I will.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much. Cheers. See you next time.
It's a pleasure meeting you, man.
Absolutely.